Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories. So we hope to see you in the community. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. On this episode, I am really excited. I have a brand new friend. Thank you to Stephanie Paul for connecting me with Maria Mastrodicasa. Maria, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Stephanie. Awesome.
We love Stephanie. So the first question is my favorite because it allows me to get to know a little bit about the people. But tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, who I am is a woman of integrity and high values. That's who I am. What I used to do, I'm a native New Yorker, a former Wall Street broker. I ran with the wolves, ended up ahead of the pack, even though I was told I would never. You'll never, is what I was always told, and became the #1 broker in my department of 13 men, making 6 figures at the age of 26.
Wow. So that's a story in and of itself. But let's dig into You'll Never. So you've written a book on it. And is that also the theme of your journal, or is that a separate?
Yes, that is part of the journal. It's based basically on the book, and it just gives you the opportunity to journal in there and ask deeper questions, because my entire story of You'll Never started when I was 3, and it extended through my life and my years on Wall Street and divorce and all of that. It's the lessons that I've learned. So throughout the book, it's lessons. It's not woe is me. It's basically, this is what happened. This is what I learned. And how can I support you through it?
I love that. Now, the premise of this particular podcast is we're exploring networking. So I'm going to ask you the burning question: what's your philosophy towards networking?
So networking, which, years ago was, advertising or marketing. And so I feel that every time we step out into the world, we are marketing ourselves. So we can talk and use a lot of words, but it's really who we be, how we walk through the world. People are not so much listening as they are watching you. And when you claim to be, they watch you even deeper. And so I think everything we do is marketing.
I love that. Now, before we started recording, you were sharing your big aha when it came to networking, and you used the analogy of breathing. Would you share that with our listeners again, just so that that was golden? Sorry, people, we didn't hit record fast enough.
Oh, well, thank you. I say it because we're in the midst of Thanksgiving and giving. And so when you breathe out, you're giving your breath, you're giving. So count how many seconds that you can go without then breathing in. So it is a give and a take, or it's giving and receiving, and we get to allow others to give to us. So we have to be good receivers. And isn't that marketing as well?
I love it. And I think that's that ebb and flow. If we're not breathing in, at some point we stop breathing out. So that's I know a ridiculous number of networkers who are always running around breathing out and nobody's stopping to breathe in. So beautiful advice. Is there any other networking advice you've received that has really changed your view of the world or your view of networking as it is?
Um, I look at everything, and I've always looked at everything from a positive and a negative, and the negative is who I don't want to be or what I don't want to do. And the positive is obviously the opposite of that. So when I see people networking and their agendas, what is your agenda? Is it to raise people up to give value wherever you go? Or is it that take and get over and it's all about me? So for me, when I focus out, it flows freely. Like Stephanie Paul shared, me. She was like, "Oh, talk to Maria." Connecting people, helping people for no other reason than to support them in their journey.
I love that. Now, one thing I want to come back to, obviously you talk about you'll never, and um, I'm fascinated by a lot of the quote unquote male dominated industries where, women are told you'll never get ahead. I'd love to hear, and maybe this is a deeper story for another day, but I'd love to hear some of your big lessons taking on Wall Street. I mean, that's got to have been an amazing life experience in and of itself.
Yes, and I could just step back a little bit. So you'll never, the journey to what's possible through self-advocacy. And I realized through the writing of my book or books that I've been advocating for myself since I was in the third grade because I was told I would never amount to anything, or I heard people telling my parents, Maria will never amount to anything because she can hardly read. Fast forward, I decide I'm going to go into Manhattan from one of the boroughs in New York, and I was told you'll never get a job in the city because you don't even have a high school diploma. I decide to go, I get a job in a headhunter. I find this job, trainee position on the trading floor of the government market. I walk in, it's 95% men. They're from Yale, Harvard, Wharton, you name it. I go, oh my goodness, I need a tutor. And I get a tutor. And gratefully and thankfully, I find out I'm dyslexic, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the best news ever. Is there a pill for that? I thought it was a disease. And and I it was amazing. And then I did all the things necessary to grow and expand. And then I was like, hey, I could do this. I want to be a broker. They laughed at me and said, it's a man's world. Lucky you were invited. You will never be a broker here.
Wow. And yet you went on to be leading in the team.
Yes, after I did have to leave that company to extend my career. And then I was recruited because they heard this female voice, and I beat everyone on the trade, not because I was so great, because I typed faster. and and I do talk about harassment in the workplace and how I was almost fired for choosing my values over the boss's advances, and they wanted me to leave. And I used my voice and spoke to the owner of the company. It was like walking into Gordon Gekko's office, pretty much, from the movie Wall Street.
Yeah.
And I sat down with him, and I got to keep my job and learn more and grow and expand. And then I had my career. And I did become the number one broker in my department of 13 men, which is, as you're saying, in this male dominated world.
And that's, it's funny because I know a lot of people from that world, and yes, almost all of them are men. And I'm gonna say you're probably the first woman that I've actually talked to about it. But there's a very different culture on Wall Street, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I know a disturbing number who've ended up in rehab, and they've chucked the life of Wall Street. I think my favorite story, since you're a New Yorker, is the founder of Smokin' Al's Barbecue out on Long Island. He was a famous Wall Street something, and he was like, I hate my life. I can either jump out the window like everybody else, or I can move to Long Island and cook barbecue.
Yeah.
It's a funny story that
Many people have done that. I have people that live near me that had seats on the in the stock exchange, and so the companies that I worked for, I worked for three of the big five. There's a New York Times article of the big five, and we made more money in a day than the New York Stock Exchange. So the lifestyle, because there's so much abundance of money, and you're not trained. And that's some of the things I'm working with women to train to how to protect your financials and your financial freedom, and how to do it right, as opposed to letting it, we have a choice. It could take over us, or we could take over. So yeah, I've seen it, I've been in it, and I left for that reason. It was just a different lifestyle.
yes, it's an interesting industry, and clearly there's a need for it, but it takes a toll on those who come through it. So um, now let's get into the actual networking. And one of the things I like to do, and my one of my passions is I love connecting people who'd like to be mentored with mentors. And obviously, that can be as simple as, you need to read Maria's book, or it could be, you need to find a way to work with somebody. What's your personal favorite resource on networking?
Is finding people who are aligned with the same values and the same purpose. You connect those together to be impactful. For me, that's what I do. I listen. I'm a very good listener. And then what I like to do is connect people who have the same purpose in mind. And people have connected me. I am literally, through my book and taking a stand by using my voice, or maybe staying seated and being less vocal, like Rosa Parks. And now I sit on the committee for the Raymond and Rosa Parks Institute. How did that happen? She was part of my speech, and people connected me.
I love that. And I'm just going to go on a total tangent here that, when I think of powerful women who've had a big impact, I literally can't think of anyone before Rosa Parks. I mean, and, I was looking for a good quote, and I'm like, well, it's hard to capture her essence in a quote, because her most impactful action was to sit down. I mean, that's,
Yes, and I
you
can
know,
give you a quote
oh,
from
please do.
her, which is quick, is never be fearful about what you are doing when what you are doing is right. Rosa Parks.
Okay, thank you. I literally, you can't read it, but I have it on my whiteboard. I'm looking for a quote from Rosa Parks. So I asked the universe, and here you are.
Yes, because she stayed seated, knowing that it was right for the people before her and anyone who came after her. And that's a lesson in itself, is sometimes there is wrongdoing to you, and we get to take a stand, not for ourselves, because for me it's always easier to stand for someone else. Is think about all the people that are going to come behind you, that you took a stand and it made a difference for.
I love that, and I think I'd like to explore advocacy a little further, because I think we seem to be in this world of extreme passivity all the way to extreme aggression, and I feel like there's a voice in the middle there, and I'm guessing that when you talk about advocacy, you're looking for the most impact, but also aligning with values. So what does advocacy look like in your world?
um it For me, it's built inside of me. It's my values and what I stand for, and I take my values with me in a backpack, pretty much, and I take them out wherever I need them. And that's what supported me during Wall Street in many situations. Is this is the lifestyle, and everybody can see from the movies what the lifestyle was, and what I chose was my values, so it made it easy for me. And so you can say fight. The word fight war, all of that fight is just doesn't feel right to me. So advocate for, fight for, advocate. So for me, it's taking a stand with the values that really ground me.
I love that. And I think, a lot of people have the hat that they wear. This is my work persona. I have the mask. And the people I see that are successful, they can't comprehend that. Okay, this is how I behave at work. This is how I behave at home. I'm a big fan of knowing what you stand for and then living it. It's so much easier than trying to remember what role am I playing today.
It's what we do when no one is watching.
I love it. I love it. Now, I'm going to ask you a very personal question, and I'm just going to see where it goes. But who would you say is the best networker that you know personally, and how has that relationship impacted you?
Well, how personally?
Yes.
Oh, because otherwise I'd say like Oprah Winfrey.
Okay.
Um,
Well, we'll explore that next. But
yes. So personally, in the last 3 years, I would say it is Dr. Betty Uribe who wrote the book hashtag Values,
oh,
and she did the forward on both of my books.
oh,
And
nice.
she's a thought leader, and she's driven by values, and she connects people easily and freely because that's who she be.
I love that. Now, you mentioned Oprah, and I'm going to guess you don't know Oprah personally, um, but I'm fascinated, and I can't wait to hear the answer because when I think networking, Oprah isn't my first thought. But now that you say it, I'm kind of thinking maybe that's something I need to look at. Tell me your take on Oprah as a networker. I'm curious.
Um, Well, it's who she allows to sponsor her, her giveaways, her treats. She shares what she loves in her magazine. She shares the books that have brought value to her life. She shares them out, whether she gives them away, which she's given many things away, or she just shares the information so others can purchase it. The interviews she does is always networking. It is to bring value to everyone who watches and listens. So when you bring value where you go, that is a network, not just her network of the and what she
A
produced,
literal network.
not her literal network, and it's how she networks people, and it's people that and we use the word aligned and synergy. So that's what I think of because it flows freely from her.
I love that. And it's now that you say it, I look back and I'm like, that really resonates because that's, I've been at conferences where they had Oprah come and speak, and people are like, oh, how much did that cost? And it wasn't about Oprah's fee. And I don't know if she wants people to know this, but most of the time she'll speak for a respectable donation to one of her charities. So it's not, the aggrandization of Oprah. It's about spreading her values and continuing her work. And that was actually part of the talk she gave at one conference I was at. It was, about the energy you bring. And it was fascinating because she wove in the story of the charity she was raising money for into her talk. And she explained it was a mentorship program for young ladies, I want to say in Africa, but it's been a while, so my brain's not all there on the details. um, but it was teaching them the life skills of business and relationships and networking.
Mm.
Now, you were telling a story also before we started about your grandfather. Let's cover that because I feel that's a very relevant. Talking about Oprah and her. network and how she brings value. And I feel like that was sort of ingrained in you from a very early age.
Yes.
So you're telling me about your grandfather. Would you?
Yes. So my grandfather came over from Italy and he started a business. I believe he and his brother, and they became contractors. So they did residential, they did, private homes and residential properties, residential and commercial, excuse me. And they worked all year round because they knew how to do mud floors and this and that. And so when my grandfather would go back to Italy, people would beg him to take, someone, show them America and where they could flourish. And he would literally have to sign a document that stated if they didn't make it here financially, that he would agree to take care of them financially.
And I think that's, again, as a society, if we took ownership of the people we care about, I mean, I feel like there's a after school special on Ellis Island, and, somebody going through and highlighting the names of people that families that started in America because of your grandfather.
Yes. And my mother would not want to go to some of the places because they wouldn't charge us. So he brought over my cousin Salvatore, who started a bakery. And I would go, I want to go because I remember it as a little girl. I could go in and they'd give cookies and things like that. And my mother's like, oh, they won't charge. They would never, if I went today, they still would not charge because they feel that they would not be here and be as successful as they are without my grandfather bringing them here to this country.
What a wonderful story leading into Thanksgiving. I mean, it's that gratitude, and I think that's the lesson I'm taking away from this is the reminder that what we do for somebody else might not feel like a big thing to us, but it can have, if it's done with intention, it's done in alignment with our values, it can literally have generational impact.
It did. And not only did my grandfather, but my grandmother, took them in. They ended up staying and living there, but my grandmother would cook for everyone. So my grandfather had a potpourri of people in New York that worked for him. I didn't understand, color or what I didn't understand any of that. I just knew that my grandmother cooked for everyone. And when my grandfather passed is when I realized what a blessing he was in the world, because we never needed anything. If my grandmother needed food, we had a butcher. If something broke in the middle of the night, people would come and do whatever was needed because of my grandfather, the legacy that he left.
I love it. And I know a lot of people seem to have, mixed feelings about networking, but really, truly, this is community building. It's taking care of one another and knowing, trusting that the community will take care of you if you need it. And
Yes.
it's interesting. Your mom will have to learn to breathe in because, you know, giving people the gift of allowing them to serve her, right?
Yes.
That's that's an interesting one. I like that. Um, we can go off on some tangents here, but I think this has been amazing. Now, I want you to share a networking experience you've had, something where a door probably was closed to you. Maybe somebody, I'm going to guess, just I get this sense that you hear the word you'll never, and somehow you turn to your network, and that makes you'll never become possible. So, would you share one of your favorite networking experiences with my audience?
Um, I would say my favorite networking experience was at the Pierre Hotel in New York City. I was invited with someone who was extremely intelligent, high level, owns a company that's global, and asked for my help because he wanted to be introduced to so and so and so and so. And I'm talking big companies like the CEO of a major car company that his device happened to be in. And I said, absolutely, show me a picture. And I just found them and I said, oh, let's go. How do you know? I know it's them. Come on, let's go. Let's take a picture. And then the best one was this woman he wanted to meet. She owned 52 television stations
Wow.
and he wanted to meet her. And so I said to the people at the Pierre who would, oh, we want to meet her. Can you send her over? And she came over and he decided to say, hi, I'm so and I'm the founder and president and blah, blah, blah. And I said, how are you? And she, oh, I'm rushing my children. They play soccer. And then, oh, did they ever play this team? And she said, no, but you know this. And she's from New York and she mentions a borough where she was born. And I said, oh, I was born in the other borough. How amazing. My aunt just wrote a book on the wisdom, and I shared the story. And I said, oh, why don't I send you? We just connect about family and I said, I'll send you the book. Thank you so much. She goes, now, where is he trying to get in? She said, just send me an email and I will open up the doors for him.
So the takeaway I have there is he was successful in spite of himself, but because he was smart enough to ask for your help, you built the relationship, and I think that's in networking. I just get amazed by people who go straight to the pitch, and it's like, whoa, 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 let's get to know each other first.
Yes. And so I connect on a level that today, and this is a few years ago, I remember her. I remember what her children do. I've done this at other events that I've been invited to because I actually do care. There isn't the agenda for me. The agenda is to have a relationship and a friendship. And I feel that the purpose, so I always like to make an impact and I feel the income will happen. And if it doesn't, I made a friend.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
And honestly, that's resonates with me, and I think that's how you and I have connected, is through building relationships, and people remember and say, oh, Maria just has a book out that she's looking to share with the world. And one of the fascinating things, and I share this as a networking story, but what I find is when you've written a book, you suddenly meet a lot of other people who've written books, and it becomes a rich little tapestry of, it's this authors club that, nobody's in it to exclude. It's more, oh, what did you write about? Tell me more.
Yes, we get to share our stories because for me, the best thing that has ever happened to me when I do a Q&A is that when people hold up my book and they say, this is me, this chapter is what I went, and it evokes them to share their story. And some of them are very personal stories, and it just gives them that safe space to do so.
I love that. I love that. Now, a couple more questions, and then I could talk to you all day, obviously, but I want to be mindful of your time. What are you working on right now, or how can people connect with you? You mentioned the Rosa Parks work that you're doing, but how can people connect with you and get to know you better?
Well, I put together a program. It's coming together, and it's going to be it's going to be a year-long program, but not necessarily a year. So each month I'm going to focus on an area in women's lives that I can help them learn to advocate in different areas of their life. And I'm going to pick an area each month to work with them. And if they want the one-on-one coaching, I love to do that because it's more personal. For me, it's impactful. Like I was talking about that woman that I met. I love to hear people's stories and how can I help them elevate? Because if you read my book, I've been through from third grade to present many things. And that's the gift that I have, is that I can help them in all areas of their life to transform. I've transformed the way I look on the outside, but really what it has done is changed me on the inside.
I love that. Now, this is the hardest question, so I'll let you ponder it for a second. But you are the expert at you. Is there any questions I should have asked you that my audience desperately needs to hear the answers to, and I didn't ask?
What would you like your legacy to be?
Ooh. Well, Maria, what would you like your legacy to be?
I think as we spoke about my grandfather, it makes it easy to know that the way he walked through the world changed so many lives in a positive way that it made them want to pay it forward and give back and to be more like he was. So I think that's what I want my legacy to be.
I love that. Well, Maria, I want to thank you for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it. And honestly, there's a lot of other paths we could go down. But first and foremost, I want to thank you for sharing your amazing insight into networking and connecting.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been amazing. And I'll have to reach out to Stephanie Paul and thank her as well again.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.